You got a problem? Blame Roman Reigns. What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with a fun little holiday commentary for you. First of all, I just want to wish all of my listeners here in the United States a very safe and fun and happy Thanksgiving holiday. I hope you guys are all getting a chance to spend some time with your families while getting drunk, eating a ton of food, watching football, and of course not forgetting to go out the very next day and murder somebody for a flat screen TV. For the rest of you living everywhere else in the world, I invite you to sit back and relax and laugh at all of us dumb Americans for being such gluttons that we actually have a holiday where we stuff food into more food. We are fucking pigs. Anyway, in this episode, we're going to discuss a lot. We're going to talk more about Survivor Series and the fallout from the big Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg match. I'm going to review this past Monday night's Raw, which was a very good show from Toronto. Also going to review this week's SmackDown, and there's some time at the end, and there's more wrestling news to get into. I will touch on that as well. Just a quick little channel update or programming note for you. I have decided that at the end of the year, which is coming up in about a month, my final video of the year will be a Q&A. I have mentioned in previous commentaries to start sending me your questions because I was due to give you another Q&A very soon, but I think I'm just going to hold out until the end of the year and give you a nice long one. Nothing crazy, not 5 or 6 hours or anything like that. I think last year I did maybe like a 3-hour commentary, so it's just going to be like a longer than normal Q&A. Please send all of your questions to goodmicwork@gmail.com. Tell me your name and where you're from and ask me anything you like, and I will definitely do my best to answer your question, and I'm going to plan on answering a lot more questions in this Q&A than I do in my normal Q&As. Usually I keep it to about 20 or so questions. I'll probably try to answer 50 or so in this one. So send all your questions over to goodmicwork@gmail.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. Let's jump into Monday Night Raw. Now, of course, this was the night after Survivor Series, and the wrestling world is still shaken over what we saw at the Survivor Series with Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. Still a lot of debate. I mean, it literally feels like the wrestling world is split right down the middle. I mean, after I had a chance to go online and see what the rest of the reaction was, when I had a chance to listen to maybe some other podcasters or other wrestling YouTubers, from what I could understand, it's really kind of even. There's a few of them that feel ripped off, and there's a few of them that feel like it was the greatest thing they had ever seen. And I think I'm still kind of in the middle. However, I am leaning towards really liking the match. I mean, people's argument was, oh, it was just a minute and a half, all that fucking build for nothing. I feel like I wasted my money. Why squash Brock Lesnar in that way when he's been such a monster instead of giving that opportunity to a young guy? All that shit I hear, and I understand, believe me, I do. But at the same time, look at what it's done to wrestling. In my mind, I don't really care as long as it gets people talking, as long as it brings interest back to wrestling, because as we've seen before, I've talked about this in previous years, this is one of the slowest and deadest times of the year. This is my least favorite couple of months of wrestling every year. I always think November and December, especially December, are so boring, and I've pitched the idea many times of WWE doing an off-season for only 1 month, and I think the entire WWE roster should be given the month of December off. It would not be a huge full-blown off-season. It would just be 4 weeks for everybody to go home, spend some time with their families, spend some time with their children, maybe nurse some nagging injuries, and just given an overall break from the crazy life that is being a professional wrestler. I just think that the month of December would be the perfect time for that, you know, and it's holidays and it's kind of family time. I think it would be just what the roster needs, not only physically but mentally. I've talked about that many times. So for the wrestling business to get this much buzz during this time of year, you know, we noticed the way the fans reacted to the Brock Lesnar-Bill Goldberg match. They have not reacted in this way since the Undertaker's streak was broken a couple of years ago at WrestleMania 30. That's how big this was. And to me, that's a positive thing. I loved being shocked by it. I love the fact that Goldberg squashed Brock Lesnar in one of the biggest upsets in history. And you want to know why? Because you have to look at what wrestling is. Wrestling is simulated combat. And what I hate is how the wrestling fans get so mad about who wins and who loses sometimes, where if you're trying to suspend your disbelief, you're trying to pretend that this is real, true competition. And sometimes in real, true competition, the person you want to win does not win. We see that all the time in sports. We see teams losing Game 7s at home in front of their own hometown fans. We see people losing their retirement games. Sometimes the script just doesn't fucking work out. Same thing in UFC. You get a whole bunch of 30-second matches there. Look what happened to Ronda Rousey last year. You know, she got the shit beaten out of her in like the first round. I don't know how many times we've seen one-punch knockouts or 30-second submissions or anything like that in UFC. So sometimes shit like this happens. And if you want to pretend that this is real, you're not always going to get a 20-minute match with near falls and drama and a spectacular finish. Sometimes the shit's just going to end strangely. And I like the fact that WWE maybe sewed a little bit of reality into this type of match. Now, there's not much reality to a 50-year-old Goldberg defeating Brock Lesnar in a real fight, but at least the surprise of it, the upset of it, the way Goldberg looked pretty awesome. I mean, both of those spears he nailed on Brock Lesnar were pretty believable looking, and he even got him all the way up for the jackhammer, which was amazing, and then wound up pinning him. I think if they would have gone 20 minutes, the fans might have been bored with it. You know, Goldberg has worried us a little bit. You know, when he was throwing those knees on Rusev a few weeks back, he kind of fell down, and I was kind of worried that the match would suck. So at least this way, the last thing we can say is it sucked because it was so fast it didn't have time to suck, and the 3 moves we saw were pretty good moves, and the crowd popped like crazy. The internet and Twitter world exploded. I mean, even the roster, even the locker room was shocked beyond belief because of this thing. So when I look at all those factors and the potential for a rematch now, because if they just went out and had a 20-minute match and Brock Lesnar finally avenged the loss, where would they go from here? You know, so at least this way we now have a chance for a rematch. The next confrontation between these two is going to be really interesting because Brock is so confident and he's such an ass kicker and he fears no one. How is he going to react now to Bill Goldberg? He can't say it was a fluke or anything like that because he got his ass kicked. So how is he going to react next time him and Goldberg are in the same ring together? That might be at the Royal Rumble, which is what we'll talk about here in a minute. So, you know, just my overall opinion on the Survivor Series main event. Now that I've had a couple of days to think about it, I actually liked it. I didn't have any problem with it at all, and I thought it was pretty damn amazing to witness. I love it when the internet blows up. It's a wrestling YouTuber's dream. Whenever something big like this happens, we love to get videos up because they get a shit ton of views and a shit ton of reaction and a shit ton of chatter. If this would have been another boring Survivor Series, and nobody would have given a shit. So at least with this, it gets people talking, and for podcasters and YouTubers like me, it's a lot of fun because it gives us something to talk about and gets our channel a lot of exposure. I was pretty hard on Survivor Series 2 up until the main event. I was getting really annoyed with some of the finishes. I thought it was absolutely stupid to keep the Cruiserweight title on Monday Night Raw when the Cruiserweight division is on a show that follows SmackDown with a SmackDown fucking announcer. Doesn't make any sense. I thought the SmackDown women would have benefited more from a victory against Raw than the Raw women did. There's a bunch of things on Survivor Series that annoyed me, but overall it was still a good show. The main event definitely delivered for shock value, and if we're looking for big, long, drawn-out matches at pay-per-views, we got that right before Brock and Goldberg when the 5-on-5 SmackDown versus Raw match went like an hour, didn't it? And it had all sorts of shit in there, with what happened with Shane McMahon going through the table onto Braun Strowman, and then getting knocked completely unconscious to where he had to be helped from the ring, Braun Strowman completely murdering James Ellsworth, the list being used as a weapon, the Shield reuniting, and SmackDown winning with the survivors being Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. You know, that match had everything. So when I look back at Survivor Series, I'm not nearly as mad at the show as I was while I was tweeting during the event. So, you know, overall, I got to give Survivor Series a good grade just because of what it did to the wrestling business. So, anyway, that's the last I'm going to say about Survivor Series, at least for right now. Let's move in to Monday Night Raw. That's what you guys have been waiting for. Raw opened with Goldberg. Like I mentioned, he came out right away. It was leaked earlier on in the day that Goldberg would be on the show, but Brock Lesnar would not, which is what I expected. I figured Goldberg would come out and make a victory speech, and then we wouldn't hear from either one of these two guys again until next year. And that's pretty much the deal. Goldberg came out, had his victory speech, thanked his wife and his kid and his family. You know, it was weird when Goldberg's kid came in the ring after Survivor Series to celebrate with him with no shirt on. I don't know what that was all about. But Goldberg showed how much he loved his family in the promo and mentioned that after Survivor Series, when he was coming back from the ring, he ran into Stephanie McMahon, who told him, "You were right. You had another spear, you had another jackhammer, and you had another fight left in you. Do you have another title run left in you?" And I immediately was like, oh shit, they're not going to give Goldberg a shot at the title, are they? Goldberg versus Kevin Owens on Raw in the main event. That's kind of what my mind was thinking right off the bat, and then it turned out just to be a way for Goldberg to announce that he's entered himself into the Royal Rumble, and that's basically going to be his title shot. If he wins that, he goes on to WrestleMania to face the champion. So I don't think they're going to give Goldberg the title, but the way he mentioned it got me a little bit nervous there at first. So Goldberg is now penciled in for the Royal Rumble. More reports that I'm hearing about Survivor Series is that it was decided upon just a couple of days before the show that Goldberg would be at the Royal Rumble. Apparently, he did truly sign a one-shot deal with the WWE, which blows my mind that they would sign him to this, have this huge build, the main event, this big pay-per-view, and then never use him again. To me, I thought it was established way before Goldberg even came back that he would come back for multiple shows. I mean, hell, we're already at Survivor Series. WrestleMania is right around the corner. How do you sign Goldberg to a deal in November and not use him in April for WrestleMania? It makes no sense. So Goldberg, it was rumored that he has extended his deal with the WWE to now work Royal Rumble and most likely WrestleMania. And they say that's what factored into the decision to have him beat Brock Lesnar. But for Goldberg to beat Brock the way he did, I would hate to think that that was a last-minute decision. I would hate to think that they just decided on that the day before. I would hate to think that they did that finish because of the co-promotion of the video game and all that shit. I really hope they didn't do that to Brock for some stupid reason. To me, it seems like a finish like that would have to be set up and agreed upon way ahead of time with future plans laid out. All right, Brock, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go get raped by Goldberg, but don't worry, you're going to wind up beating him in the future, either at Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, or something like that. It does look like now that they could have a confrontation in the Royal Rumble. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Brock Lesnar winds up eliminating Goldberg. Goldberg is in the Royal Rumble officially. Brock Lesnar has been rumored that he will be in the Royal Rumble match itself. We know he'll be at Royal Rumble in some capacity, but it looks like it might actually be in the Rumble, and that would be pretty awesome because they do have a big stadium to fill. So if you pack this Royal Rumble with as many big names as possible, and having Goldberg and Brock in the Royal Rumble together would be pretty fucking epic. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Brock wound up eliminating Goldberg from the Rumble, and then they had a WrestleMania match where Brock Lesnar wins the blow-off and avenges the loss and the blemishes on his career to Bill Goldberg. It would still put Goldberg up 2-1 on Brock, but maybe with him eliminating him at the Royal Rumble and then defeating him at WrestleMania, it will be enough. A lot of people thought maybe The Undertaker would get involved at Survivor Series. Maybe he'll get involved at the Royal Rumble as well. I think you should put Taker in the Royal Rumble too, if you ask me. Put Undertaker, Goldberg, and Brock all in the Rumble. We still don't know what Taker's even going to be doing at WrestleMania. There's the big John Cena rumors. That would probably be the best match. Either that or John Cena and AJ Styles, but they might do Cena and AJ before then. I don't know. That still remains to be seen, but I don't want to see Undertaker versus Goldberg any more than I wanted to see Undertaker versus Sting, and I definitely don't want to see Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar again. So I think right now, for the biggest marquee match that you could have, Undertaker John Cena for WrestleMania, I think makes the most sense. But Goldberg's announcement on Raw definitely gave us a lot to think about as far as what storyline directions they're going to go in between now and WrestleMania. It should be a lot of fun trying to fantasy book the next 5 months on WWE TV. So that pretty much wraps up the speculation on Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. I seriously doubt we're going to hear from either one of these two guys for the rest of the year. I guess we'll pick everything back up when we start building for the Royal Rumble next year. As far as everything else that went down on Raw, it was a pretty good show. I mean, the Toronto crowd was hot for it again. We had some amazing moments in this show, and probably the best moment of the night, even better than Goldberg's promo and the crowd going nuts for him, was what went down on the highlight reel with Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. Oh my fucking God. That was segment of the year. I straight up ejaculated when they said it was Roman Reigns' fault and they gave each other a big hug. That was beautiful. The way they played the crowd, they were so perfect. I mean, the whole interaction between the two, which was probably not really that scripted, could not have gone better. Kevin Owens, there was something about him in this segment that I think was even funnier than anything he's ever done. These two guys are goddamn comedy gold. Jericho is more over now, at least with me, than he has ever been in his entire life. So they set up the big highlight reel. Chris Jericho is pissed off because, as we remember at Survivor Series, Kevin Owens used the list as a weapon and hit AJ Styles with it, and papers went everywhere, and the list was destroyed, and Chris Jericho was basically in the ring mourning the loss and the death of the list, and it was a horrible moment for him. So on Monday Night Raw, he's pissed off, and he says that he's going to have a highlight reel and he's going to explain to everybody who is to blame for the destruction of the list, the whole time teasing that he's pissed off at Kevin Owens and there's going to be a big split. So he's out in the ring complaining about the list and everything, and Kevin Owens just flat out interrupts him before Jericho even has a chance to tell everybody who's to blame. Owens then comes out there and starts arguing with Chris Jericho. He asks the monkeys in the truck to put up photos of Survivor Series on the Jeritron 6500, which Jericho corrected him on. It's not the Jeritron 5000, it's a 6500, and Jericho says that Owens was right there when he upgraded it, so he should know. Kevin Owens is then explaining his side of the story, illustrating it with the pictures, and he's like, Jericho, look, dumbass, you're about to get styles clashed right here. I ran in with the list and saved your ass, did I not? I even got disqualified because of it, sacrificing myself for you, my best friend. Is that not right? And Jericho kind of agrees with him, but they still wind up arguing. They get in each other's face. Kevin Owens is acting really spazzy. The pictures even disappeared from the Jeritron briefly. And he's like, hey, monkeys in the truck, where'd the picture go? Why'd you take it off? And he's all just twitching out. It was fucking great. And then right when they're about to come to blows, they get in each other's face. And Jericho's like, I know whose fault it is. And Kevin Owens is like, well, I know whose fault it is too. And they get right up against each other. And then they, in unison, say, Roman Reigns. And the fucking crowd popped. Jericho and Owens embraced. And it was just a beautiful, glorious moment. And I saw it coming because that's the type of shit Jericho does. What did he do in WCW all those years ago? I think it was in Toronto, wasn't it? It was definitely in Canada. And Jericho was like out there pandering to the crowd, talking about how great Canada is, building the crowd up more and more and more with love, and then delivers the classic line at the very end where he says, thank God I moved to the United States because Canada sucks, and immediately turned on him and the crowd lost their shit. This was great. The crowd couldn't even be mad at this because Jericho and Owens said that it was Roman Reigns' fault, somebody that is universally hated by the Smarks and especially by folks in a town like Toronto. And it couldn't have been a more beautiful moment, and it was one of my mark-out moments of the year. These two guys are absolutely magical on the mic. It was great. I was just blown away by the segment. I thought it was awesome. I had a great time watching it, and definitely when I look back at 2016, it's going to be one of the moments that I remember the most. Seth Rollins then comes out, and he kind of ruins it because we were all having a really good time, and winds up brawling with the two of them, and it's 2-on-1, and Jericho and Owens are beating down Seth. Then Roman Reigns' music hits, and he comes out to kind of make the save, which prompts Mick Foley to come out and actually make a title match for Monday Night Raw. In the main event, we were going to get Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens in a no disqualification match for the WWE title, and the stipulation was that Chris Jericho and Roman Reigns were both banned from ringside, which I thought was kind of silly because it's a no disqualification match. How can you ban them from ringside? If they interfere, there's no disqualification, right? I think they should have just added something to it. I think Mick Foley should have said, you're banned from ringside, and if you interfere, you're fired, or something like that. Or maybe with Roman Reigns, if you interfere in this match, I'm going to take the title off of you. Or with Chris Jericho, if you interfere, I'm going to take your list away. Or something like that, just make it to where they can't come out. So just to fast forward to that main event now, I didn't really think we would see a title change, although after what we saw at Survivor Series, it was definitely possible. And I found it interesting that Mick Foley banned Roman Reigns and Chris Jericho from ringside instead of anybody from ringside. He should have said, nobody can interfere in this thing, because the first thought that popped up in my head is that Triple H will show back up and help Kevin Owens defeat Seth Rollins, because we've all heard that Triple H and Seth Rollins will probably wind up having a match together at some point. I sure hope so, because I think Seth Rollins using the pedigree as his finisher fucking sucks, and the only thing I can think of is that he's going to do it until he's finished up with whatever's going to happen between him and Triple H. But at some point, I would really like for Seth Rollins to get a new finisher. So I was almost convinced that Triple H was going to show back up and help out Kevin Owens, but he didn't. You know who helped out Kevin Owens? Chris Jericho. He showed up anyway. He's in the crowd, get this, wearing a fucking Sin Cara mask. How perfect is that? This is why I love Chris Jericho. He is doing something that only people that really follow behind-the-scenes news are going to understand, and he wore a Sin Cara mask. We all heard that the two of them got in a fight, I think on the overseas tour or something like that. Sin Cara might have even won the fight, even though Jericho, we didn't see any black eyes or missing teeth from Jericho. Whatever the scuffle was, maybe Sin Cara kind of got the better of it, but Jericho definitely did not get his ass kicked or anything like that. And he's out there wearing a Sin Cara mask in the crowd and winds up attacking Seth Rollins, helping Kevin Owens get the victory after, what did he do? Hit him with the power bomb on the ring apron and got him back in the ring and was able to pin him. So Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens ruled this Monday Night Raw. Every single thing they did was unbelievable. The highlight reel was one of the greatest things I ever saw, and this title match was another damn good title match. We had everything. They were brawling all out into the crowd. Seth Rollins even crawled up to like the second level and dove off onto Kevin Owens into the crowd and everything. We had table spots. We had everything. It was a very good and it was a very fun match. That's the main thing about it, is I thought this match was really, really fun. And even though we didn't see a title change, I was completely satisfied, because how can you take the title off of Kevin Owens after what him and Jericho did on this week's Raw? How can you possibly take a belt off of a guy that performed that amazingly in that highlight reel earlier on, and then performed in a match almost equally as good? So Kevin Owens is money, and Jericho by his side right now is probably the greatest thing in WWE. We'll have to see what sort of repercussions are coming Chris Jericho's way for interfering in this match. I mean, Mick Foley banned him, but he showed up anyway. So what happens? Is he in trouble? Is he fired? What are they going to do with him? I have been mentioning Chris Jericho's WWE status a lot lately, because if I had to guess, it seems to me that he probably came back this most recent time for just another short run. But as he got rolling and got more over and doing all the stuff he's doing with Kevin Owens, I'm almost thinking that he's like, well, shit, I can't leave now. I'm the most over I've ever been. So hopefully Jericho is around for the foreseeable future, and they won't do something like fire him on TV, unless they give him the holidays off or something. Maybe Mick Foley comes back next week and says, Jericho, you're fired, and Jericho is gone until the beginning of the year or something. But as far as I'm concerned, keep Owens and Jericho together. They are gold, and I don't want them to go anywhere, at least not yet. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Chris Jericho is booked in some sort of a match, a hardcore match or something with Seth Rollins, because you know Seth wants to kill him now. So maybe that will be Jericho's punishment, and maybe Kevin Owens is banned or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure all that out and see what they do here in the build-up to Roadblock. As far as everything else that we saw on Monday Night Raw, we had another title match. It wasn't just the Universal title on the line. It was the tag team titles on the line. That match was actually made at Survivor Series with Mick Foley and Stephanie after Cesaro and Sheamus won the 20-man tag. So they gave them a title shot on Raw as a reward up against the New Day, who came out and cut a promo talking about that they are only like 21 days away or something like that from demolishing Demolition's record, which got a little bit of a negative reaction from the crowd. That's Toronto. Don't forget, Demolition won their third tag team title in that very city at WrestleMania 6. And I'm a big Demolition fan, probably my favorite, well, maybe not my favorite, but definitely top 2 or 3 favorite tag teams in WWE history. I would have no problem at all with Demolition keeping that record. It would also be cool to see them make some sort of an appearance. They are still wrestling on the independent scene. As a matter of fact, I talked to a buddy of mine, the guy that I mentioned that I talked to the day after the election, that's a referee down in the South in the Carolinas on the independent level. He's actually working a show where Demolition is going to be taking on the Rock and Roll Express. I have to talk to him. I'm not sure if that match has happened yet. It's about to, so it's really soon on the horizon. But Demolition is still making indie appearances to this very day. It would be nice to see them at least appear. I think somebody had said that Bill Eadie is in that concussion lawsuit, which surprised me. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. He's not a bitter, jaded, drug-addicted mess like some of those people that are in that lawsuit are. So if either one of those two guys are named in that concussion lawsuit, I highly doubt they're going to come in and do anything with the WWE right now, and probably not be inducted into the Hall of Fame either. But if they're not, and they can come in or do something with WWE, I would at least like to see Demolition make some sort of an appearance. And at some point, they absolutely must go into the WWE Hall of Fame. It is long, long, long overdue. So the fact that New Day is so close to the record, I really didn't see them dropping the belts to New Day or Cesaro. And they didn't. They snuck away with another victory. They had to cheat to get this one. I think Cesaro has got Kofi in the sharpshooter, and he's about to tap out, and Xavier jumps up on the ring apron, starts playing the horn, which distracts the referee. Kofi then starts tapping out, but the referee doesn't see it. Cesaro then gets up to chase Xavier off the apron, which allows Kofi to roll him up and get the pin. And New Day escapes yet again with those tag team titles. So they are really on borrowed time, you got a feeling. And it looks like, could they potentially go heel again? I think they might be the first team or wrestler in history to go through an entire title change as a heel, then a babyface, then back to a heel, all within one title reign. That would be pretty amazing. So I think that's probably what they're going to do with the New Day from here on out. Maybe have them survive and survive and survive until they beat the record, and then they will drop it. Or they could drop them right before the record, which would be nice. They have another title match next week on Monday Night Raw, and I'm wondering if they're going to do this every week. I wonder if they're going to have a title shot on every show until they get to the record. I'm not sure what the actual date that the record is broken falls on, but hopefully it's a Monday or something like that. So Gallows and Anderson have another shot at the titles. They're the team that I've wanted to win the belts all along. I'm not sure if they're going to do it next week because of what we talked about with New Day attempting to break the record. New Day might be able to survive yet another match again, which would suck because I'm sick and tired of seeing Gallows and Anderson lose, but that's most likely what they're going to do. So we'll have to see where that goes next week. But whenever New Day drops the belts, I hope it's to Gallows and Anderson, and I could even live with it being Sheamus and Cesaro. I do like that team. Speaking of title matches next week, Charlotte will have one too in Charlotte, her hometown in North Carolina. She came out for a promo and was bragging about surviving and beating Bayley's ass after the match. Sasha then comes out and wants a rematch with Charlotte, and Charlotte agrees but says not tonight. And they did wind up making that match next week in Charlotte, which apparently is what Charlotte wanted. Nia Jax then comes out to the ring and attacks Sasha Banks. Bayley attempts to come out and make the save, but Jax holds her off. And then I had to leave the room for a few minutes. I left during a commercial break or something, and then I came back in the room, and we had a tag team match between Nia and Charlotte versus Bayley and Sasha. I don't know how they put that match together. I missed it, but Sasha did wind up tapping out Charlotte, and Sasha and Bayley won the tag team match there. So big title match, 2 big title matches next week penciled in for Raw in Charlotte, North Carolina. New Day versus Gallows and Anderson, and Charlotte versus Sasha. Do you think Sasha would win the belt again on Monday Night Raw? I mean, those are her big moments, remember? That's when Sasha tends to be at her best. She's already won 2 women's titles on Monday Night Raw. Do you think they would hot potato it again and give it back to Sasha? I mean, Charlotte beat Sasha in her hometown. Maybe Sasha will come around and do the same thing to Charlotte. I don't know. But given what we've seen between these 2 women so far and all of the upsets, don't rule it out that Sasha won't win the belt next week. She very well might. The Cruiserweight title shot that Rich Swann will be getting on next week's premiere edition of 205 Live was set up on Raw as well. He won a triple threat match against TJ Perkins and Noam Dar. We also had Cedric Alexander beating Daivari with his finisher. I love Cedric Alexander. He's probably my favorite cruiserweight. I just think he's so amazing, and I've got a lot of high hopes for him. Rusev defeated Enzo, completely demolished Enzo. He was pretty mad at him because earlier on in the night they did a segment where Enzo was naked. I guess Cass had locked him out of the locker room, and he's completely naked after a shower in the locker room, and he just starts walking down the hallway right there in the arena and comes up on Lana. And I thought it was really strange that they were going back to this, somebody being naked and toilet humor and Attitude Era kind of dumb stuff, but it turned out to be a really funny segment. Enzo was probably the perfect guy to walk around naked, because he was like, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And then Rusev wound up showing up, and he was like, why are you naked in front of my wife? And what's your problem? And Enzo says, I wouldn't call it a problem, and all this shit. So it was pretty funny. That led to a match between Rusev and Enzo absolutely got raped by Rusev. Speaking of being raped, man, Sami Zayn got destroyed by Braun Strowman. Now, this match was made by Mick Foley backstage. He was basically punishing Sami Zayn for not bringing home the Intercontinental title at Survivor Series, even though it wasn't Sami Zayn's fault. Maurice rang the bell and fucked the whole thing up. Mick Foley says, yeah, some of it was out of your control, but there still has to be repercussions for not bringing the Intercontinental title to Raw. Jesus, Mick Foley. More like Dick Foley. What the fuck is your problem? I think some of that ruthlessness of Stephanie is starting to rub off on Mick, who's normally so happy, and especially this time of year. Mick is a Christmas mark. Why is he not being a little bit more sympathetic to Sami Zayn, considering that he got royally fucked over at Survivor Series? So now he puts him in this match with Braun Strowman, and the match doesn't even get underway. So at least Sami Zayn didn't get in the ring and get pinned in 5 seconds. He was making his entrance, and Strowman came out and attacked him from behind with a vicious shot. I mean, that looked real. That looked like it hurt. And then he went on to just absolutely pummel and demolish and destroy Sami Zayn in one of the biggest ass beatings I can ever remember. Sami Zayn deserves a lot of credit for the way he sold and put over Braun Strowman. That was amazing. He looked as knocked out as Shane McMahon did. His eyes were rolling in the back of his head. They were glazed over. He truly didn't look like he knew where the fuck he was. And I thought it was a pretty brilliant segment. And Strowman, man, hard to not like this guy right now, guys. I'm telling you. Strowman is pretty damn impressive. All in all, I think Raw gave us a lot of good stuff. I enjoyed the show immensely. I thought it was a pretty good and fun Survivor Series weekend. We had a great NXT TakeOver show. We had an extremely shocking Survivor Series pay-per-view that got the entire wrestling world talking, and then we had a great Monday Night Raw the night after to wrap things up. And I'm glad it turned out to be as good as it did. Moving on to SmackDown now. This was a pretty good show too. There was a lot of stuff on SmackDown that I got a huge kick out of, especially the main event. But Shane McMahon actually opens the show, which you gotta give him a ton of credit. He is fucking tough as nails. Not only is he on the show, but he's coming out first and cutting a promo, despite the fact that he was knocked legit unconscious at Survivor Series. So he comes down to the ring walking very gingerly and goes on to talk about the Survivor Series match, even commending Raw on the great fight that they put up, and praised Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton for being able to stick together, two of the guys he was the most worried about as far as the SmackDown team goes. They wound up being the only two survivors, and expressed his disappointment with Dean Ambrose. He almost fucked the whole thing up. Dean Ambrose actually comes out there, and I'll tell you what, man, what Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens did on Raw, Dean Ambrose came almost as close as they did on SmackDown as far as entertaining me to that level. Dean Ambrose was great on this episode of SmackDown. So he comes out there and he's kind of blowing the whole thing off. Come on, Shane, no big deal. Yeah, I came out there and attacked AJ and reunited with my Shield brothers to give him the powerbomb through the table, but we still won, so what's the big deal, right? And then he goes on to introduce what he says is the MVP of the SmackDown team, James Ellsworth, because of course he held on to Braun Strowman's foot, causing him to get counted out, which I thought was just a brilliant way to get Braun eliminated. And then at the end of it, Braun, of course, destroys and kills and murders poor James Ellsworth by tossing him off the stage through a couple of tables. Ellsworth kind of hobbles out there. He looks completely pathetic, wearing a neck brace, and he kind of stumbles in the ring. And Shane has got a big surprise for Ellsworth that he is supposed to talk to him about backstage later on with Daniel Bryan, and that is they're officially going to offer Ellsworth a SmackDown contract, but Dean just cannot keep his mouth shut, and he spoils the whole surprise, bugging Shane to tell Ellsworth what the surprise is. Come on, tell him, and then finally winds up just telling him himself. So Shane is starting to get fed up with Dean Ambrose, and he actually gives Ambrose the rest of the night off and tells him, not only are you off, I want you to leave the building, basically throwing Dean Ambrose right out of SmackDown. And Dean kind of cooperates. He's like, okay, you want me out of here? No problem. And he leaves. And as he's leaving, AJ Styles comes out to the ring. His music hits, and he starts coming down. And what I thought was odd about this is that there was no confrontation between the two. After what transpired between them at Survivor Series and the fact that these guys are having a TLC match in a couple of weeks, you would think that there's some fucking bad blood there and they would start brawling in the aisleway, but they didn't. I found that a little bit confusing. But AJ gets in the ring to voice his displeasure with James Ellsworth getting a contract. He says, this is bullshit, that this little pile of crap is getting a contract when guys like me have wrestled all over the world for 20 years. We are the ones that deserve WWE contracts, not this fucking rodent. And he proposes a different way for Ellsworth to earn his contract. And Shane is like, no, he's already earned his contract. He's done more than enough. He is a member of SmackDown now. And AJ says, no, look, I think we should have a ladder match. I need a tune-up for my match with Dean Ambrose at TLC anyway, so why don't we put James Ellsworth's contract above the ring, and the two of us will have a ladder match, and if James Ellsworth wins, then he will get his SmackDown contract. And Ellsworth, because he's a tough little cookie, he goes ahead and agrees to this. And Shane McMahon even sweetens the deal a little bit and says that if Ellsworth does wind up beating AJ Styles, not only will he get that SmackDown contract, but it will also guarantee him an opportunity to wrestle for the world title at a future date. So that's going to be your big main event for the night. James Ellsworth, a guy that was an independent worker not 2 months ago who just signed a WWE contract recently, is been in a few SmackDown main events. I got a huge kick out of this match. AJ Styles was completely dominating and beating the shit out of James Ellsworth. Of course, Ellsworth is crippled already from what Strowman did to him at Survivor Series, so AJ's just toying with him. And you know that Dean Ambrose is going to eventually make an appearance in this match because all throughout the night he kept showing back up. It was the funniest shit. Even though Shane McMahon threw him out of the building, he just started casually showing up all night long. There was a backstage segment with Becky and Alexa Bliss and Natalya and Shane McMahon, and Dean Ambrose just shows up eating pizza with a box of pizza, and Shane is like, what the fuck are you doing here? I told you to leave. Please get out of this place. And then later on again, we've got Daniel Bryan talking to James Ellsworth backstage, and Dean Ambrose shows up yet again. This time he's dressed as the Mountie, or a Mountie, but I think he was dressed up as Jacques Rougeau's character from the WWE in the early 90s. They're still in Canada. The show was in Ottawa, I believe. And as soon as I saw Dean dressed as the Mountie, I just knew he was going to say something like, "I always get my man," or something like that. Shane McMahon happens to walk up and sees this, and he loses his mind. He goes, "What the hell is your problem? Get the fuck out of here." Finally, Shane just can't take it anymore. He loses it and says, "You know what? Forget this. I'm the one that's going to leave. I'm out of here. I'm taking the night off." Daniel Bryan sends him away and says, "Don't worry, Shane. I got this from here on out." And then Daniel Bryan proceeds to also tell Dean Ambrose to leave the building complete in his Mountie outfit. So with everything they were doing throughout the show, you knew that Dean Ambrose was going to make an appearance in this match, and there was a really good chance that Ellsworth was going to win because we know he signed a contract, so if they need to do something on TV to give him a contract, there's a really good chance he's going to go up 3-0 on AJ Styles in one-on-one matches, and that's exactly what happened. Right when AJ was about to win the ladder match, Dean shows up. This time he's dressed as a hockey player, and AJ jumps down from the ladder, and Dean, it was hilarious, he throws down his gloves and takes off his helmet, and they start brawling just like a hockey fight, which was pretty good. AJ eventually fights off Dean. I think he hits him with like the phenomenal forearm, and Dean is kind of out of commission for the moment, and just as he's about to climb up there again, this gives Ellsworth enough time to recover, and as AJ's about to grab the contract, Ellsworth tips over the ladder, and AJ falls so perfectly over the top rope. He sold it well. He almost like basically flipped. His arm kind of hung on the rope and it just twisted him and it looked bad. He took a nasty spill out to the floor, and James Ellsworth is like, "This is my chance," and he starts setting up the ladder to climb up. AJ Styles starts to recover and is entering the ring to stop Ellsworth, and Ellsworth nails him with no chin music. Looked like a pretty sick kick right to AJ's face, and AJ falls and gets his foot tied up in the bottom and the middle rope, and he can't get out, much like Shawn got his arm and leg tied up in his ladder match with Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10. I think that was a nice little homage to that finish. AJ cannot get himself unhooked, and Ellsworth is able to climb up to the top and retrieve the contract, and he wins again. He is 3-0 versus AJ Styles in one-on-one matches. It's hilarious. Dean Ambrose is cracking up, and James Ellsworth gets his contract and defeats AJ Styles again. Now, this even ensures that Ellsworth will get a future WWE title shot at some point, and you got to think that's where it ends. He's won 3 matches against AJ. He's not going to win a 4th. I would expect maybe after TLC, sometime throughout the month of December, maybe even a holiday show or something like that, James Ellsworth will get his Christmas present, and that is a WWE title shot, and AJ will finally avenge all of those losses and wind up defeating him, is what I would expect to happen anyway. But everything they're doing with Ellsworth and Ambrose and AJ right now on SmackDown is pretty entertaining. And we've got TLC coming up in less than 2 weeks. I think it's a week from this coming Sunday, so the next SmackDown episode will be the go-home show for that. And we'll talk about that card here in a little bit when I'm done talking about SmackDown. But right now, I don't see Dean Ambrose winning that belt. I think AJ keeps it. I still think we could see a heel turn in the future from Dean Ambrose, maybe even possibly James Ellsworth. I think if James Ellsworth turned heel or something like that, that could be pretty entertaining. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Maybe after his title shot or maybe next year. And I'm sure he's going to be in the Royal Rumble. You know, maybe Ellsworth eliminates Braun Strowman in the Royal Rumble or something like that. Who knows? So I kind of like what they're doing with this kid. But I have no reason to think that AJ's going to drop that belt to Dean Ambrose at TLC. I think he's going to retain, and the feud with Dean will be over, and AJ will go into 2017 as champion, and hopefully all the way into WrestleMania as champion as well. Something else kind of cool, just an idea that I might actually like to see, just an idea I had for TLC since it's a no disqualification match anyway. Remember at Survivor Series when the Shield power bombed AJ Styles and reunited? What if the club reunites at TLC and does the same thing to Dean Ambrose? What if Gallows and Anderson show up from Raw, come through the crowd, interrupt the match, and the 3 of them beat the hell out of Dean Ambrose and allow AJ Styles to retrieve the belt and win the match? I think that could be a perfect finish for that match, and it would definitely be revenge on Dean Ambrose for what him and the Shield did to AJ at Survivor Series. So keep a lookout for some sort of a finish like that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Gallows and Anderson make an appearance at TLC. I really, really hope they do. As far as the rest of SmackDown, we did have a title match on this show too. The Intercontinental title was on the line. Daniel Bryan made The Miz defend the IC belt against Kalisto. We all pretty much knew that Kalisto would not be winning the Intercontinental title, and most likely Baron Corbin would be making an appearance in the match and costing Kalisto another victory, which is exactly what happened. So Baron Corbin has cost Kalisto the Cruiserweight title and the Intercontinental title in a span of 3 days. So Corbin shows up, Kalisto actually fights him off, but it was just enough of a distraction for The Miz to grab Kalisto and hit him with a skull-crushing finale and get the win and retain the IC title, and then he ends up getting super kicked by Dolph Ziggler after the match on the stage. So Dolph Ziggler and The Miz will be wrestling one more time for the Intercontinental title in a ladder match, it was announced, at TLC. Right now, I'm probably going to pick The Miz to retain, unless the whole point of giving The Miz the Intercontinental title was just so Dolph could win it in a ladder match or something like that, but I think Dolph could have been the champion anyway, and they could have still had the ladder match. I don't know. So they have one more match, too. Daniel Bryan even said that this will be it. This will be the end of the feud between Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. Winner take all. I'll have a predictions video up next week. Right now, though, my early prediction is probably that The Miz will keep it. Now, speaking of Baron Corbin, not only is he fucking over Kalisto, but he's also fucking over SmackDown. Daniel Bryan is none too pleased that Baron Corbin is pretty much the reason why the Cruiserweight division is not on SmackDown. So he books Corbin in a match with his good friend Kane. So Corbin shows up for his match with Kane, and Kalisto interferes this time, causing Baron Corbin to get choke slammed, and I think the match was just thrown out in a no contest. But Kalisto is not done there. He goes on the outside of the ring and grabs a chair and proceeds, I think he kind of threw it at Corbin and gave him a spin kick to the face. And it was actually announced that Corbin and Kalisto will wrestle at TLC in a chairs match. So we've got another match penciled in for TLC there. Kind of a strange feud. I don't even understand this one. So whatever they do at TLC, I hope this is the end of it, because I'm not that into it. I'd like to see Corbin work with somebody else. We had another interesting match as well. This was a tag team turmoil match to determine the number one contender, and I guess the winner of this will get a shot at Heath Slater and Rhino at TLC. So they go through the whole thing. American Alpha winds up winning it, but right at the end, they are interrupted by the Wyatt family on the Tron. And I think it's Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton who are saying that, you guys think you're done, you think this is all over with, but it's not yet. We're coming for you. And I guess the only thing I can figure out is that Tag Team Turmoil will continue on into next week, and the Wyatt family will be taking on American Alpha for the number one contender spot. Now, I don't know if this is going to be Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper and Randy Orton, or Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. I have no idea. So I'm hoping it's going to be Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. I think that'll be awesome. They can win this and go into TLC and win the tag team belts. Why not? I love American Alpha. I want them to be tag team champions. I think they will one day. It's possible they'll still do it at TLC, maybe next week. Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt get disqualified or something like that. I don't know. But if they put the tag belts on Wyatt and Orton, I have no problem with that. Has Bray Wyatt even held a belt yet in the WWE? I think it's definitely time, and I'm really surprised about how much I'm actually liking Randy Orton as a member of the Wyatt family. On paper and on the surface, this didn't seem like something that I thought was a very good idea. I didn't think it made much sense. I didn't know what the writing team was thinking. And I thought, obviously, it was just Randy Orton setting up Bray Wyatt to eventually turn on him. But it looks like he's a full-blown member of the Wyatt family. I still expect Randy Orton to break away and turn on Bray Wyatt and get his revenge and all of that. I definitely think that's going to happen. But I like the fact that they're dragging this out. And now if these guys wind up winning the tag team belts, hell, they could have a run that could go on for a few months. I think it's something different for Randy Orton. It's a different kind of a role for him. I think he's doing it pretty well, and I'm semi-intrigued by it. I just didn't think it was going to be something that was going to interest me that much, but I'm finding myself liking it a lot. So I'm rooting for Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton to get that title shot at TLC. I want them to win the tag team belts. I think that would be awesome. I don't have much else written down for SmackDown. We did have a women's match too, I believe, right? Becky Lynch tapped out Natalya, and then she was attacked by Alexa Bliss after the match. They will also have a match at TLC. So just to talk about TLC briefly here, the card that I think I have 5 matches written down that are confirmed or at least semi-confirmed. That, of course, is AJ Styles versus Dean Ambrose in a TLC match. Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz for the IC title in a ladder match. Becky Lynch defending the women's title against Alexa Bliss. Baron Corbin versus Kalisto in a chairs match. And Carmella taking on Nikki Bella in a no disqualification match. So I guess we will get 1, possibly 2 more matches announced. Probably, well, obviously, the tag team title match, whoever winds up getting the title shot there. Most likely Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton will be taking on Slater and Rhino. And hopefully we'll get 1 more match on top of that. As far as Roadblock goes that I mentioned earlier on, I guess that's a Raw pay-per-view that's coming up, I think on the 18th or something like that, so just a couple of weeks after TLC. I did just peek about 5 minutes ago on the Wikipedia page for Roadblock, and it has penciled in Kevin Owens defending the title against Roman Reigns. So since Seth Rollins got a title shot on Monday Night Raw, I wouldn't be surprised at all if next week on Raw they do something that gives Roman Reigns a title shot. So Roadblock, I think we are going to see Kevin Owens defending the title against Roman Reigns in a champion versus champion match. I know the fans probably aren't going to be too pleased with that, but you can rest easy knowing that it's a long shot that Roman Reigns will win the Universal title. I seriously doubt it. I suppose they could also do a triple threat. Maybe it will be Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens in a triple threat. Maybe you could even toss Jericho in there somehow. So I'm sure they'll be setting that up in the next couple of weeks on Monday Night Raw. I'm glancing through the other wrestling news right now, and I guess since it's the holiday, there's not much to talk about. I don't see anything really noteworthy to really mention as far as any behind-the-scenes stuff goes. At this point, it's just a lot of speculation of what the WWE is going to do next year at the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania with certain people, especially Brock Lesnar, Bill Goldberg, The Undertaker, John Cena, AJ Styles. There's lots of people that we are really curious about as to where they are going to land and what they are going to be doing at some of those pay-per-views. So anyway, I guess that is it for me. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Like I said, you guys have a great rest of your week. Have a great holiday. I will catch you probably in about a week. I don't think you're going to hear from me until next week's Raw and SmackDown again. I'll come up around Wednesday or Thursday, just like this commentary, and give you a review on both. I will also include my TLC predictions in that video because TLC will be the following Sunday. And I'm also going to be talking about the premiere of 205 Live and all of that. Incidentally, a lot of you people have been asking me if I've seen the new network show, WWE Storytime. It's another animated special. I have not checked it out yet. I also need to check out the big ECW special that they ran as well. So I'm going to do that this weekend during the holiday weekend. Wasn't too interested in the animated show because Camp WWE, although it was funny, I didn't find myself really watching it. I think I watched 2 episodes. So I was just basically going to wait and see what the reviews are on Storytime. But people are telling me to check it out, so I definitely will do that this weekend. That is it for me. I am out of here. I will catch you in about a week's time. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great holiday. Have fun. And please, please, please be safe. I will talk to you in a few days. Until next time, peace.